Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. Thank you for joining us. Nigeria's governance trajectory the last 25 years has been a tale of struggling economy, nagging insecurity and emerging food insecurity, endemic political corruption, overstretched and pauperized citizenry, among several other challenges. Periodic elections have ushered in transitions of both acclaimed democratic and progressive administrations with various blueprints that have failed to guarantee minimum living standard for the over 200 million population growing at an alarming rate. While the numbers of those below poverty line continue to grow without corresponding plans to cater for their needs, the political class and others within the corridors of power seem to deepen their grip on power and allocating resources to service their expensive lifestyles. The ultimate result is hunger, insecurity, unemployment, high cost of living, general despair and apprehension. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with a lawyer and a notary public practicing in the United Kingdom, a former spokesperson to the PDP presidential candidate at the 2023 elections, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar Emmanuel Bwala. He joins us virtually from London. Thank you for joining, Barrister.
Thank you for having me. Let me note that my name is Daniel, not Emmanuel, and I'm not practicing in the UK. I'm studying, I'm doing a research PhD.
That sound. Okay, well, we try to get the sound clearly. Okay, Barrister, are you there? How is London?
Yes, thank you for having me. I just say that I want to note that my name is not Emmanuel, but Daniel Bwala. And secondly, I'm not practicing in the UK. Okay. Even though I've been called to the bar here, I'm actually doing a PhD research program.
Great. Thank you for those corrections, Daniel Bwala. Now, before we begin the conversation, here are some tidbits. Now, the police have beefed up security at the warehouses belonging to the National Emergency Management Agency nationwide following looting of food warehouses in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, on Sunday by suspected hoodlums. This was as soldiers foiled an attempt to raid a factory warehouse at the Idu Industrial District, Jabi, Abuja, on Sunday morning, during which they arrested 5 of the attackers. Footage of the incident made available to a national daily showed the arrested suspects lying on the ground as armed soldiers stood over them. The factory was involved in the production, processing, and packaging of various agro-commodities, including grains, rice, pulses, and edible oil. Several incidents of attacks and looting of warehouses and food trucks have been reported in many cities against the backdrop of the hardship and the cost of living crisis in the country. Last week, some youths stole food items from trucks stuck in traffic along Kaduna Road in the Suleja area of Niger State. And former presidential aide Rino Omokri has lambasted Peter Obi as ignorant for referring to Ukraine's food aid to Nigeria as a national disgrace. Omokri, a former special assistant to the erstwhile President Goodluck Jonathan, noted that Ukraine is the world's 7th largest wheat producer and that the war in the country has not affected its position. He said Obi, who himself is a former governor of Anambra State, needs to be educated about Ukraine and wheat, adding that not everything must be politicized. The 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party had described the generous donation of tons of grains to Nigeria by Ukraine as a national disgrace. And viewers, we take a short break, and when we return, our conversation with Daniel Bwala commences. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us on Daily Politics. And Barrister Daniel Bwala, you've heard some of our tidbits, talking about issues in Nigeria, especially the issue of cost of living crisis, which has generated a lot of apprehension among citizens. You've seen the footages of some warehouses being looted, if you like, by Nigerians as a result of hunger. What's your reaction to that?
Well, thank you for having me, and good evening to your viewers. It is highly regrettable that the Nigerian people at this time are going through tough times. Tough times in the sense that many families cannot afford to eat. They are not sure when they go to bed. They are not sure of food the next morning. So people are not even talking about business. They are not talking about schools. They are talking about survival. And that's why there was a report that a lot of Nigerians are living under multidimensional poverty. It is a level of poverty that is existential. And we really feel for every Nigerian citizen, in fact, all of us are going through this problem, but it is predictable. It is predictable because over a period of time, the management of the affairs of the country has not placed Nigeria in a position where when you're confronted by a problem, you can look at buffer. You can go back to certain things you have done, savings, investment, or even aid that you can lay hold on. What am I trying to say in essence? I'm trying to say that the policies that were introduced by this administration predictably are policies that will naturally result in this hardship. But this administration is making effort from the proceeds of the removal of subsidy to then invest in areas that will critically affect, they will affect positively the Nigerian people. And these are massive. For example, before President Bola Tinubu took the oath of office, I remember there was this report that said not more than 5 states in Nigeria were actually out of the waters, but the rest of the states in Nigeria are insolvent. They are deep in the waters. The removal of subsidy afforded the administration the opportunity to increase their allocation by over 300%, which means that the federating unit, the state government, have now the capacity to take care of problems within their province. Remember, the sharing formula is between the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And you see the percentage there. This hardship that is being experienced by the Nigerian people are mostly people in local communities. So, for example, every state where you see a demonstration, there is a governor in that state, and there is a local government in that state. And that state got over 300% of allocation to deal with problems of hunger, agriculture. They fall within this the concurrent list. They are within the precincts of the federating unit. Yeah. Then, of course, the money to the local government. But I make bold to say that in Nigeria today, you really can find in the local government up to 5% of what was or what is originally earmarked for them invested in local government. That's why there's insecurity at the local level, lack of farming, and the rest. So what I have made a commitment doing now is to put things in their proper perspective as we discuss, so that the Nigerian people will understand that the government we're running is a federal government, not unitary government. In unitary government, whatever happens in your local government, the central government is responsible for it, because the central government controls all the affairs of government up to the last village. But in the federal government, there is a state government that operates independent of the federal government, gets their resources to advance the area. So if the state government are deploying their monies to deal with this problem, federal government would have enough to deal with security and insecurity in their respective states.
Okay, Barrister, you did mention that the situation we found ourselves was actually predictable. That is one. And then two, you talked about the efforts, to mitigate the current hardship. You try to give credit, if you like, to the current administration for rising up to the challenge, if I understand. But then we had a government, an APC government, which you happen to be part of, in the last 8 years, which has been running the affairs of this country. And then we had the same president, who is now the president of this country, as leader of the APC, and somewhat part of the government, because he has a listening ear, to the president. And all of this things were happening, the fault lines, things that led us to where we are today, and nothing was done, to halt the trajectory. That is one. And then two, the current president has been nursing the ambition of becoming president of Nigeria over time. You did mention that some of these challenges are existential. What why was he unable, perhaps, to come up with a blueprint, that will address the problems head on? Because today, some people say it appears to be a trial and error kind of policy arrangement. What would you say?
So there are three layers to this issue. The first layer is global. So inflation is a global phenomenon. Here in England, about 2 weeks ago, England officially entered into recession. And you would have imagined an economy like the United Kingdom, to the point the Prime Minister now is threatened. His extent of staying in the office is threatened because they are calling for him to call for election, and he's dilly-dallying. He's waiting to see if some of his policies can work, at least so that his popularity will be high by the time they go into election. And if you look around the world, you will see the impact. The European Union as a union is in recession, but countries like Germany are not. You can pick 1 or 2 countries that are out. Over 500 billion pounds sterling was spent since the COVID in the area of healthcare. But as I tell you, people are dying in the United Kingdom because of one problem or the other. So the first component, or the first layer, is that there is a global phenomenon that Nigeria is caught up in it. The second one is the policy reform component or platform. Now, this policy that was introduced by President Bwala Tinubu, the reason why you are using the term that people could say it is like trial and error is because from independence till today, no president has implemented in its fullest this policy. So nobody had a notion or an idea of what would happen. But you just know that situation will be tough. There will be cost of living going high. There will be inflation here and there. But nobody had this premonition, this supernatural, way of knowing the extent to which it will go, right? So most presidents shy away from this. And about the last 3 to 4 presidents in Nigeria had more the idea of this removal of subsidy. But once they see an outcry and they see the possibility of losing, I remember President Buhari wanted to do it. He was advised that if he does that, the party will lose election, and he backed out. And then he made, in fact, the issue even difficult by removing subsidy, asking the subsidy to take off after President Bola Tinubu takes the oath of office. So putting President Bola Tinubu in a position whether he likes it or not, as soon as he takes the oath of office, the next morning, he's going to be faced by the reality of the fact that legislatively, subsidy has been removed and it has not been budgeted for. Can you see the second layer to the problem that President Bola Tinubu encountered? The third one, like I told you, is the aspect of the federating unit. We have not, over the years, developed this balance between the federal government and the state government in such a way that the state government will understand the enormity of their responsibility. If you look at governors in Nigeria today, they are practically the problems in the country, because you can go through every facet of life in Nigeria. There is no way you can go around anywhere without the influence of a governor. They determine who becomes ministers. They suggest MDAs. They suggest ambassadors. They send people to the National Assembly, State Assembly. They have even appointment into judiciary. It is still the state government that say this is our son. So they have enormous influence. Only Lagos and few other states are beginning to implement certain policies to deal with this extreme hunger. The rest of the states owe no apology or explanation to their citizenry. They have over 300%. So with these 3 layers, it is difficult for you to apportion blame to President Bola Tinubu. The good thing about President Tinubu is that, unlike, because I've been around for a while and I've listened to President, unlike other presidents, he has refused to give excuse. In every meeting where this thing comes up, he will say, I asked for the job, I campaigned for it, and I have no excuse. I will do the work. And this is a good sign on the part of the president. I think where we have the problem is in fashioning out the modality for the distribution of the intervention. For example, when you see the looting of the warehouses, if there was a clear plan on how this distribution is to be made, people will be patient. Like, for example, the president returned from France immediately and ordered that from the strategic reserve, certain metric tons should be released to the masses. 1 week later, it was not. Now, the people in charge may have been working hard, but the communication was not done in a way and manner where the people can understand and then wait. So, but that is not an excuse for somebody to go breaking into shops, breaking into car and looting, because that in itself is a criminal offense. And you cannot say altogether that everybody involved in this looting, they are doing so because they are going through hunger. There are criminal elements associated with it. So introduction of this policy is helping all of us as citizens to see how we can redirect our priority as we move to a better future.
Okay, let's take the issues one after the other. Perhaps you, in your effort to, even though you didn't exonerate the government from the current happenings, but what you're trying to say in essence is that the background has already been laid, if you like, or the situation has been, programmed such that it will happen this way, especially with the removal of subsidy. But you praise him for taking the bold step now to remove the subsidy and also harmonize the exchange rate, which others have failed to do.
Correct.
Yeah, but then
Okay.
This is neither here nor there, so to speak, because the reason why some say it's trial and error is the fact that these two key components you're talking about have been returned surreptitiously somehow. Now, just last week or so, a player in the industry claimed that the government is injecting ₦1 trillion into the oil sector to pay for the subsidy. Many have seen it coming long ago when the prices supposed to have gone up, but they remain where they were. People felt that the government was providing some level of intervention. That is one. Two, even the currency we are talking about, the free fall of the naira, after all the dilly-dallying and all of that, government has realized it has to intervene. We are beginning to see the pegging of the dollar at 130, 1,300 thereabout. And then, the intervention, injecting monies into, trying to create excess liquidity in the market and so on. And then also going after people they call speculators and what have you. It appears the government is also interested in halting the free fall. After it has floated the naira, allow it to take its, get its value in the market and all of that. Isn't this, some would say, policy somersaults?
No, it is not. And let me explain. The IMF, which is the Brentwood Group, what they do is they are the ones that have influence as to how you obtain loans, right? And they have the IMF policy. So that's why they said before you can be eligible to access certain loans, they are of the view that you must implement policies that are consistent with their ideals. So when you see somebody is being accused, they will say the reason why Nigeria is suffering is because we're implementing the IMF policy. Now, if you take a deep look at, in fact, the World Bank, there is an aspect of thought within the precinct of the reasoning around IMF policy that advocates for what they call strong country ownership. Strong country ownership is like an objection to the full application and implementation of the IMF law, meaning that the countries must be bold enough to apply the principles and underlying policy of IMF to suit their special circumstances, but not allow themselves to be bullied into carrying out hook, line, and sinker the policies, because one case may differ from another. The case in Nigeria may not be the same with Burundi and the rest. So in the application of the strong country ownership, countries are permitted, even within the present or the premise of implementation, to bring about intervention. It is for that purpose you see the federal government also intervening in the very area that they removed the subsidy. Look at the case of oil, for example. Had the government not intervened, the price of liter of petroleum would have gone for 1,700. The intervention of the government has maintained a certain stability in the price, yet we have been able to have excess revenue arising from the removal of subsidy. So if subsidy was not removed at all, while the government may come to that point where you will maintain a certain stability, but you will also not have income to be able to do anything project in Nigeria. With respect to forex, you talked about federal government also intervening in that area. Were it not for the intervention of the government, you see in every policy, you have those who will want to resist it. There are those who are benefiting from the corruption associated with that, which is what you find in Apex. Imagine BDC owners who were gaming the system, who were not following regulations. Look at the area of Binance, for example. Look at the billion of dollars that were allegedly moved into the country, and you don't know where they come from, what they are for. This is where terrorism financing also comes. So intervention does not mean that the federal government is going back to its vomit, but it is application of the strong country ownership.
So it's not about panic, going into panic mode now. Okay, part of your intervention earlier, I was also trying to push the blames to the subnationals, the state governments, who are receiving almost triple what they used to receive in the past, owing to subsidy removal. But beyond just, resource allocation, there hasn't been much, should I say, coordination now, or providing that leadership that is required for this additional resources to trickle down. Beyond just telling the states, to take responsibility and also do the needful, we haven't seen the president even coming up, even in terms of accountability. He did give them 5 billion naira, at the beginning of the crisis. He's also sent a number of intervention in terms of grains and all of that. And that has not been seen. It hasn't been trickled down. You did mention that. That is the reason why people are looting, warehouses. But he hasn't come hard on the governors to say, he had a meeting with them recently, but there hasn't been, a kind of strong commitment or some sort of, accountability drive to get them to do the needful. Why is it difficult?
What did you expect the president to do in the given circumstance? To apply the Obasanjo policy of impeaching a governor? Our democracy does not permit of that. We run a federal government system. Let me finish. A federal system of government where you have the state governors. What the resources that go to them, the Constitution empowers them to use it for the purpose it is intended. Meaning that apart from advising and encouraging them, the president cannot force any state government for using or not using. In the days of Obasanjo, what he was doing is, if you don't carry out the things he wanted, he will stop the allocation from coming to your area, or he will cause an impeachment. And that's not the path of democracy. That is not what you will see from Tinubu. President Tinubu believes in democracy. That's number one. But the greater burden is actually on the members of the press, like you people and the Nigerian people. Because the way the government is saying, the government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. So it is the people that should hold the governors to account and not the president. He's not their headmaster. He's not their head prefect. The president is the president of the republic. And the powers of the president are circumscribed in the Constitution. You look at the execution of the Constitution, whether in the areas of the exclusive list or concurrent. And there are overriding cases where he will have to intervene in the interest of national security. But the president cannot summon a governor and be saying, why didn't you give this? I will instead give it. In the days of Obasanjo, there was a time he bypassed them and sent the money directly to local government. In Buhari's administration, Buhari even effected the constitutional amendment that gave room for the autonomy of the local government. What did the governors did? The governors on the same platform of APC took the federal government to the Supreme Court and got an order that the federal government should not interfere in the state matters. So these are fact of issues, and the media must communicate that to the Nigerian people. So in terms of whether the states are able to use their resources, equitably for the benefit of the people, who are the people to call them to account? The fourth estate of the realm. That's our democracy. Members of the press. They are the ones that will focus on state government. That's why I tweeted a few days ago, urging Mr. President to do what either Jonathan or President Obasanjo did sometimes back, when he ordered the finance minister, Konjo Bwala, coordinating minister of the economy, he asked her to publish the monthly allocation that goes to state, so that in the national daily, when it comes out, say, for example, in Borno State, the people will know how much comes. As soon as they started doing that, governors started to sit up. But now, do you know, they can even deny. The other day, the Senate president said additional money was given to them. One by one, they were denying. But if there is a publication of the allocation, it will be difficult for somebody to deny. And then the people will know. When a governor tells civil servant there's no money to pay you, they would have known what came in last month. It will be real time. When he said he's unable to pay for healthcare, he was unable to take care of things that are within the precinct, or that local government is going through problems, then we know that certain amount of billion or million, hundreds of millions has gone into that local government. Why is it that there is insecurity, there is no agriculture, there is no feeding, there's no healthcare service in that place? So it is the same way the media hold the federal government to account. The way the democracy works, you extend that to the state, to the local government. But our psychic and psychology in Nigeria, right from the days of military, has not relieved us from that bondage where we can begin to hold state government to account. Everybody's attention is on the president as if we are running a unitary system of government. But it is federal system of government.
Okay, looking at the center, because we cannot also say that all is well with the center. We're talking about policies. These policies emanate from the center, and they are the policies that are driving Nigeria and the Nigerian economy into where we are today. You know, the removal of subsidy has contributed significantly to the inflation that we're witnessing, the hyperinflation, about 30%. Significant part of it has to do with food inflation, and it is obvious. We go to the market, we see how, you know, prices of food items are beyond the ordinary people. That's one. You talked about how UK and other economies are also finding it difficult, facing this difficulty, pre-COVID challenges, managing their situations. Yes, UK is in recession. Nigeria was also in recession at some point after the COVID, but it got out of the recession and then it was on a trajectory of, recovery. Why is the government finding it difficult, if the policies are not working, to reverse them or tinker with them, come up with things that will, halt this declining trend instead of shifting blames? Earlier you said there were no shifting blames, but we had people from the government and those within the government making references to the previous administration. Don't blame Tinubu, it's not the architect of this, XYZ, the blame game continues. And you did mention also that he said he actually looked for the job. In fact, recently he emphasized that in Akure, that, well, I have to take full responsibility. I'm not blaming anybody. But why are Nigerians not seeing the result?
Let me tell you this, and let me bring it out to simple economy, which I'm not actually very good in economy, but the simple one everybody knows. Okay. Once the purchasing power of the ordinary man increases, no matter the inflation, if his income also rises, that means he can rise above inflation. Now, that is with respect to the common man. Now, this is what is not happening because of one or two problems. But let me now graduate it to the state. The purchasing power of the state has increased by over 300%. So without prejudice to the inflation on ground, since the purchasing power of the state has increased by 300%, it means that the residents of that state ought to feel the impact of the increment of their purchasing power irrespective of the inflation. Simple logic. If a state is collecting 7 billion and now 7 billion is times 3, without prejudice to the inflation, that means the state, let's say you even take one out of the three, and say you devote that to the feeding of the poor in that state, and you now buy food items. Nobody will be on the street protesting because there would have been enough. But now the income that has come as a result of the removal of the subsidy given out to the state are carefully hoarding the money or hoarding the food, thereby increasing the tension and the pressure on the federal government. Let me make it clear. I have not apportioned any blame to anybody. I started by telling you that the crisis situation is systematic. It's over a period of time. The day President Tinubu took the oath of office, there was already 72 trillion already incurred, which he must pay in 3 years. Are you now going to say because you don't want to blame Buhari, you should talk as if that does not exist? Because the question is, why are people suffering and there is no solution? So you must give a context to whatever you talk about. That is one. And in any case, if they don't blame Buhari, me, I have every reason to blame him. But in this case, I'm not even talking about blaming. because the policy of President Bwala Tinubu is working. It is a policy that is not going to work immediately. It is understandable. Like I told you, it's predictable. It is a policy that will work in the long run. What we need to manage now is intervention so that the vulnerable in our society will be able to take care of them, feeding them, taking them out of hardship, health condition and the rest, before we begin to see light at the end of the tunnel. But I am never in doubt as to the fact that we need to implement this policy. We have no option to implement. It is a simple case of somebody that you and your family, you have been living a lifestyle. You go to club Friday. I'm just giving a scenario. And then you take your family every weekend to the amusement park, to the movie. Then in every quarter, you people fly to any part of the country for holiday for 5 days. And then you also have certain lifestyle and while you were doing this, the income you are using in doing this were borrowed. Because we are practically borrowing to do everything in Nigeria. And then it gets to a point where you're used to borrowing the money. They now say, look, I can't give you the borrow because I'm not even sure you will pay me. And if I'm borrowing you money, I must be sure that what you're going to use the money for, what to do with it, is such that you'll be able to pay me back the money. And you don't have any option than to carry out the policies that these people are saying, okay. And by the way, the policy of IMF is not saying go and kill your people. It is still consistent with what we are doing. There is an intervention aspect of the IMF policy. There is the IMF policy that talks about infrastructure, invest in infrastructure. Then allow free market economy. Free market economy means don't keep defending the naira and oil and allow it to compete. Meaning invest in manufacturing so that your naira will stand on its own. Now, President Bwala Tinubu is implementing a policy where some people who are benefiting from the rising price, from the value of dollar going up, they are hiding the money.
So if, for instance,
are involved,
Barrister,
some of them are fronting BDC owners. So it is not just the kind of the other day in Kano, my friend who is heading the anti-corruption and public complaint, they had to be going to places to lock up shops because these individuals have the food items, but they don't want to send it to the market because if you delay it by 3 days or more, the price will go up. We got to a point where prices change 3 times in one day.
But Barrister,
the policy is not supported by the cooperation of the Nigerian people. That must be made clear. And then those who are sabotaging the effort, no reform. I dare to say that, sir. No reform on earth that comes with comfort.
Yeah.
And if you bring Rishi Sunak to Nigeria or Joe Biden to Nigeria, implementing this policy, they will not do anything magical. What we need to focus, like I said, is how do we administer this intervention in such a way that this food will get to the vulnerable? Because there is hunger in the land. I'm not denying that.
Right. Okay.
And it is the modality for doing it so that people don't also steal from this intervention that the federal government is trying to reach out to.
If I understand your submission, Barrister, it is no wrong, perhaps, to take prescriptions from IMF or World Bank, to implement these policies. You called, necessary policies, but some see them as anti-people policies because they are the ones putting the people in this hardship. And we are also aware, nowhere in the world, even developed economies provide some level of subsidy, some level of, intervention to support this vulnerable people, either in healthcare, either in agriculture, and so on and so forth. Why is Nigeria consistently interested in removing subsidy or removing subsidies that affect the ordinary people, and then without providing corresponding measures, to support the vulnerable people? We are talking about a number of Nigerians that are unemployed. They don't even have monies to pay tax, for instance. We are talking about people who are grappling with less than 30,000 minimum wage. We're talking about the workforce. Now, yet we are removing subsidy, but we are not implementing measures that will cushion the effect. The labor movement is on the street asking the government to implement its promises, of providing some succor to the workforce, not even talking about the Nigerians who are in the majority. So why are we in a haste to remove subsidy and we're still taking more of these prescriptions. They are telling us to remove subsidy on on electricity, for instance, and all of that. We're still taking some of these prescriptions simply because we want to borrow.
So this is my response to that. And it is very graphic, right? Why did we remove subsidy without first providing the palliative? This is part of the issues in my conversation with the president the first time I met with him, that he gave me a perspective, because I used to be a first critic in that regard.
Yeah, we'll
now,
come to,
when you
to
don't
that later.
have money,
Go ahead.
let me say it. When you don't have money to first plan for the palliatives before, remember, we were borrowing even to pay for the subsidy.
And we're still borrowing.
It's not like we had the money. We were borrowing practically to pay for the subsidy. We were borrowing to service debt. We are borrowing practically everything. So there is no money on ground at all to say you are going to use in planning the palliative before the removal. That is point number one. Point number two, which means you need money to do that, right? That money you need now, because you don't have it, you're going to have to borrow it. The people that used to borrow now said, look, these are the conditionalities attached to this. And then you say, okay, no problem, give it to us, we will do it. But at the back of your mind, you have decided you are going to apply strong country ownership, meaning that it's not everything you give me that I will implement. I will implement to the extent that it is good for my country. The areas where it is not good for my country, I will apply my own native intelligence, which is what the government did in the area you are saying that the subsidy is coming back here and there. But what we cannot deny, and I need to be clear about that, is that from when the subsidy was removed, we have been receiving now money. We have been saving. That savings that we've been having was what the president used in sitting down with the federating unit. The government consists of the federal government, the state government, and the local government, not one, not two. It has to be federal government, state government, and local. He now said, gentlemen, let us sit down. Nigeria is not working. Most of the states in Nigeria are bankrupt. So this is what we're going to do, the sharing formula. There is going to be this increment to the state, this to the local government. I am still maintaining the position. Because it is a federal system of government, the federal government can only account for what it's doing. What the states are supposed to do, President Tinubu can't be holding conference and be saying indicting them. It is the media that will interrogate. Now think for a moment, sir. If what has been going to these state governors, they are actually using it. My brother, this night our topic will not be on the vulnerable of our society not eating. It will be, how do we pay for their schools? How do we revamp the school? How do we rebuild hospital? How do we create research centers so that our people will begin to do research in preventable diseases, incurable diseases, and the rest? Our conversation will go beyond extreme poverty to talking about laying the foundation for economic recovery. But because the governors are not giving the people the monies, the food, and everything to their people, we are as if we were in the same position where we were before he took the office. Let us not pretend as if it is May 29 of last year that people started suffering hunger or people started suffering lack of food. Nigerians in the past 8 years have had tough and terrible times. That's a fact. Let us not pretend as if they don't exist. So the fact that it got increased by the removal of subsidy, let me say this to your viewers and to the Nigerian people about the subsidy.
Okay.
The truth is, anybody who wants to be honest to Nigerians is that thing called subsidy has been a scam, because the greater number, the greater volume of the money does not actually go to the Nigerian people. It goes to cabals in the oil industry, and they use the fuel and take it outside of Nigeria and sell it elsewhere and make profit. When the National Assembly in the Ninth Assembly of Ahmed Lawal did their investigation, they came up with a finding that only 60 million liters are consumed daily in Nigeria. But in actual fact, it is projected as 120. So almost half of it goes outside of Nigeria. And the federal government is heavily paying this private individual. But because they are paying them and the price is at a certain stability, Nigerians don't see it. Now, when they remove the subsidy, because with that, we keep borrowing. When they remove the subsidy, we get some buffer. We'll be able to look at some areas. And some of these interventions of the federal government are not immediate, right? If the federal government is implementing a policy in the area of infrastructure, it can't be overnight, just like when you're treating a patient.
Okay,
but
Barrister.
what I have said, I will keep saying, and it keeps repeating, it bears repeating, is that the modality for distributing food items and healthcare materials to our people, we need to fine-tune it and make it efficient and doable. Now, these food crops that people are vandalizing and looting in places, is it not the same food meant for them? These are you in your introduction, you say production and packaging warehouses were looted. So that means the government is doing something. These other trailers that are moving from one location to the other, they seem to go to certain places and administer to the people.
Some within the government corridors are hoarding this or hiding them, because if they are there and they are meant for the people, and then the people are allowed until they break those warehouses before they will be able to help themselves, then it means some people somewhere are holding this. Well, and taking it from, let's put them together.
Has because called on Nigerians to expose this thing. So the media now should send their investigative journalists to be able to identify. Look at the president in as far as Qatar. He was even telling the Qatari government, we are ready for investment. Don't give bribe. Anybody who asks for bribe, let us
Which
know.
some people say is an indictment on his own part. It's indicting his government officials that they are likely going to collect bribe. Is that what you're saying? Is that marketing with the marketing of the country?
It's not the marketing at all. The best strategy for marketing when you are face to face with foreign investors is what we call address the elephant in the room. Nobody has intel as to why president said what he said. What he said could, and you remember he made reference to the past when he was talking to them. So it could be inferred that in the past there may be experience from the same Qatar people about Nigerian public officials that demanded for bribe. And he cannot pretend not to address the elephant in the room. Otherwise, we will all drink a cup of coffee and we part away. So all these people who are, in my view, novice to foreign policy, who are saying that the president demarcated Nigeria, they are wasting their time. Okay. He addressed the elephant in the room. He has been going to places before Qatar. Why is it that it is only in Qatar that he made mention of that? There must be intel to the effect that in the past, there were certain demands made to the Qatari. That's
and how will that encourage them to come into Nigeria that is having, very fragile security situation and a declining economic indices? Do you think they will be interested in coming to Nigeria? Repatriating even their proceeds would be a problem. But I want to take you on this very quickly. You talked about the subsidy cabals and how they've been holding Nigeria to ransom. President Tinubu is seen to be one bold president who is taking things, taking the bull by the horn. But why has it taken him time to unmask those behind the scams in the past? He's talking about running helter-skelter to get money. Why is it difficult for him to unmask those who have shortchanged the country and then get them to refund, the monies that they took from Nigeria?
Let's be fair to Mr. President. These media in Nigeria, the Nigerian press, have been reporting since the last 5 to 6 months at least of investigation of various present and former agents of government and the recoveries. EFCC 2 weeks ago announced how many billions they recovered within the space of 100 days or so, and that many more recoveries are on the way. The president is working. He even sacked a minister in his cabinet. He suspended a minister in his cabinet to be able to expose that corruption. So to suggest that why has the president not identified and bring them out, in my view, is what we call a grandstanding, because investigations are going on. And let me tell you something about the investigation. You cannot come out and just be talking about, we are investigating so and so. The minute you say it, the people will hide the evidence. Sometimes FBI, if they are investigating you for 7 years, you even know. Within this period they are investigating, you will even think that you're having a good time with them. That's how investigation is going. So recoveries are being made. Announcement is being made every time about recoveries. So we are recovering. Look at Emefiele, for example. Emefiele alone has set us to where we are in a very big problem. But like we say, we are not looking back to say we are going to blame somebody or blame someone. But every day you had reports of recoveries of monies from Emefiele in every currency of the world.
Very quickly, I want to get your reaction to Omokore is lambasting, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi. Very quickly, before I take the last one.
You mean I should talk about Peter Obi?
No, the comment made by Omokore, lambasting the Labour Party presidential candidate for taking, for saying that it is a shame, it is a national disgrace for Nigeria to accept grain or to be accepting grains from Ukraine, which is a war-torn country.
You mean I should react to what Omokore said, or react to Peter Obi?
You react to that statement by Omokore. What's your take on that? Is it a national disgrace, or you think it's something that Nigeria should do?
That is what Peter Obi now said, whether it is a national disgrace. Peter Obi is grandstanding. I have watched recently, I think last week, they had a program that lasted for close to 6 hours. They were chanting from the beginning of the program to the ending, take back your country. They never advocated for one policy issue. If you have noticed, Peter Obi told himself and the Nigerian people sometimes back that he's the major opposition. So to him, to play the opposition means to have to be in the news every time, for good or for bad. Unfortunately for him, on all the occasions he criticized the policy of government, he has never advocated for anything better. But if you want to know whether Peter Obi believes in the masses and the vulnerability of the masses, go to all the companies where he has his employees, check how much he's paying them, then you will know we're in modern day slavery.
Let me take the last one now. Some seconds, just 15 seconds. What changes? You have to be, you were a very vocal critic of the APC government and Tinubu, and suddenly, after that closed door meetings, you change. You are now advocating for support.
Yeah, because man is a free moral agent. The only thing in nature that is constant is change. And as we change every day in life, we change based on information. So I exercise my right in the Constitution.
So there's nothing more to that?
There's nothing more. I have right of association. I have right to form opinion and thought. I was a vocal supporter of Tinubu in the primaries when I was in APC. I've been in APC for 8 years. And election seasons are over, court decisions got ended, and now we are faced up with governance. And my view is that let us focus on making sure Nigeria works. When Nigeria works is when somebody can say, I'm contesting now. If it doesn't work, can you? And then President Bwala Tinubu graciously opened his arm and wants me to come and be a part of making our contribution for the growth of Nigeria. Why should I hold it against him?
Right, thank you very much, Barrister.
He is doing well. All the candidates, let me put it this way, that ran in the presidential election, if they had become president, what is happening now, they would not have done differently. Once you change you introduce that policy, these are the things that will happen. It is how you pilot and navigate your way that matters.
Thank you very much, Barrister Daniel Bwala. We appreciate your informed perspectives. Daniel Bwala, all the way from London, giving us his perspective on national issues. And of course, this is where we come to the end of this conversation. Do join us tomorrow. We'll be back with another interesting personalities and topics. Until then, I'm Shafiu Suleiman. Many thanks for staying with us.